how did we get here and what's the legal recourse throughout this entire process? So there are 3 steps in the development process that one must go through. The first is something has to be zoned appropriately. And I like to say zoning is ethereal. It flies above the land. It's always following the land. You cannot subdivide, i.e. plat, a piece of property if it doesn't already meet the zoning requirements. Because the zoning in the rest of the world, we're form-based here, gives you lot size minimums, gives you types of uses and things that you can put in. So you can't subdivide a property that isn't appropriately zoned. You cannot issue a building permit until a property is properly platted. There are some minor exceptions to that. If in older townships, for example, if there was a lot that was in place prior to the 50s, I believe, you're okay to get a building permit, but there are very few exceptions to that rule. These are all part of what we call model subdivision regulations. The legislature, the Texas legislature, in its infinite wisdom, created model subdivision rules in the 80s that prevented colonias from forming. How many of you know what a colonia is? Okay. A colonia is a subdivision that isn't fed appropriately with water, wastewater, or storm drainage. And it is really used as tools mostly along our border areas and our county areas, and it really tends to impact impoverished communities. And so the legislature put in model subdivision rules, and they tied our purse strings into those rules, meaning we wouldn't be eligible for some grants and things from Water Development Board unless we adopt model subdivision standards. This is chapter 211 of the local government code. This is chapter 212 of the local government code. There's a reason they come one right after the other, because you can't do this without this, and you can't do this without this. Just to give you an idea of where we're at. So in comes the B3 for Bastrop. We do away with zoning and we go to something called form. And that essentially means as long as I don't see it, hear it, or smell it, I can do it. And so we're looking more at how things look aesthetically and how they interact with one another as opposed to standard uses. Like you couldn't have a bar, you couldn't have certain things in old zoning, which is, it used to be in Bastrop only around the central business district and in some areas in the downtown. In our infinite wisdom, we moved it to the entire parts of town, and we are now feeling some of the effects of that. So our no zoning code had no lot size minimums, no parking requirements, and again, if the building looked aesthetically pleasing and fit into what was adopted as a pattern book, then it was okay to do. Moving along that, as we move to a subdivision, some of those what are now called warrants in the code, they used to be called variances. Now those things are called warrants. Some of those warrants were done administratively. There was a warrant that was issued for this particular project that was done administratively. It never saw the light of day. So I've had a lot of you ask me, how did we get here? How did we get here? I'm going to show you that sequence. Along with that was some of the warrants that were required were very expensive. And so the building permits got stuck and it was very difficult to get through those. So when I came on board, we had over 600 permits stuck in the process. And those were residential permits for the most part. You guys trying to get a porch, you guys trying to get a patio, you guys trying to do some sort of addition to your house. One of the reasons they hired me was to help come fix some of this. So a lot of you have said, how are we just hearing about this now? This is exactly the point. So what was required of the North End Prairie was a neighborhood regulating plan. It was already zoned to P3, which is a residential subdivision. And so because they were more than 3.4 acres, they were required to submit a neighborhood regulating plan. Again, that is an administrative process. A neighborhood regulating plan is one of 3 things that are required. It's not the ultimate step, it is the first step. And that's because when something's already zoned, you still want to see some of how it's going to interact with its neighbors. How are we going to drain it? How are we going to park it? What's the traffic impact going to be like? So just because something is zoned, even in the form-based code, see more of the project. The first time that this is going to have a public hearing is going to be at the plat stage. And that's because the plat stage requires Planning and Zoning Commission. but the plat is a completely ministerial process, meaning so long as it checks all of the boxes, we're required by law to approve it. And if we don't approve it, we've got to have some pretty significant reasons why we're not approving it. With the plat comes a public improvement plan. We call that a PIP. That PIP has to be filed that tells us how all of the pieces are going to fit together. Once we get an approved PIP online, we have something called a PIPA, and that is a Public Improvement Plan Agreement. That means the developer, in this case, Tom and Jody, would be required to sign certain documents that they're going to build things a certain way, and they're going to put up fiscal security to make sure those things are built that way. If not, the city has recourse to call those bonds, and we get to fix the improvements ourselves. And then you get to a building permit. At the building permit is when final certificate of occupancy happens. Today, this project is here. We are in the plat. So what you have at the back table is exactly this sequence. The paperwork in the pink is the neighborhood regulating plan that was submitted. The document right next to it is some drainage reports. The document next to it is the original plat that was submitted. The document next to it is the plat with all of the comments. And then at the end, you have what is called a project board. That is a draft of the project that they are intending to build. And according to Jody, that's already changed a bit too. So that's the project board. That's what you see on the back table. And this is the plat that was submitted. The plat has been pretty redlined from staff because, again, this is the one opportunity to make sure things fit and things work appropriately and we aren't causing damage to the surrounding neighbors. So the neighborhood regulating plan was submitted on August the 8th, 2022. And I say that as an important date because it is a vested date. That's a grandfathered date. The code says you got to give the developer some consistency and not change the rules midstream because development is expensive. So that is the vesting date. Here's the rest of the tools. We had a denial and then some ultimate resubmittals and then ultimate approval by the Development Review Committee, again, an administrative body made up of staff that approved it on the 16th of March, 2023. So they couldn't approve a neighborhood regulating plan without a variance, without a warrant, because it didn't meet some of the requirements, specifically street width. So they submitted on the same day that they submitted the warrant for a decreased right-of-way for Pecan and Hill. So they submitted that on the same day they submitted their neighborhood regulation. Staff gave an approval on August the 18th, 2022. Nobody has seen that approval except internal administrative staff. So now when you're asking those questions, why haven't we seen it? That's why, because we've still been in an internal piece. We changed the rules recently because of this project and others that no variances are going to be granted administratively. The council and the planning commission will see the variance, will make recommendations, and the council has the ultimate decision-making authority. So we talk about grandfathering. The request by the applicant. So projects typically have a lifespan of 2 to 5 years. The code says you've got to grandfather things to give the developer an opportunity to finish their project. They have to be making significant progress toward the project. And if you change the rules midstream, they've got to have some assurance that the rules aren't going to impact them and their project. The request that was made was everything from parking to impervious cover to additional dwelling units and tree protections. So we went round and round with the attorneys and we came back with a response. The local government code, chapter 245, says certain things are grandfathered. Yes, certain things are grandfathered. But there are things that relate to life, health, and safety that are not grandfathered. So the original request of parking, the city attorney says is not vested. The original request toward impervious cover is also not vested because it is a life, health, and safety. It's part of a larger flood prevention ordinance. And the additional dwelling units, it's vested, but they still have to meet the parking and impervious cover. That's why that has a dotted line as sort of a half okay if they can meet the other requirements. So where are we today? The plat was denied. It was returned with items required. That's the document that you see at the back that has a bunch of red marks on it. And then today we were going to have a meeting, but because we gave them the information, that meeting was canceled. And so what's next? The applicant can resubmit. They've got to meet the rules in place, except for, as we talked about, parking and impervious cover, and a final drainage plan will be required. So what does that mean? There are concerns about drainage in the area, and so we will address that through the drainage plan. And so I'm going to hand it over to Jody and Tom, and they can go through the project, and then we will take questions immediately after. Don't go too close, I don't share with them. Yeah. Yeah.
This one's on also? Great. Does that kind of work? Yeah. Okay. Maybe this will work like this. Good evening, everyone. One of the things that we love about Bastrop is that people care and they show up, and that's what's happening tonight. So thank you for being here this evening. As you have heard, city staff has just in the past couple of days issued a denial letter on the plat with some of the changes. As Sylvia explained, that is, we will have the opportunity to make changes and resubmit. So that doesn't mean that the project is over. It just means this is another one of the steps in the process that we have been working through for about 2.5 years now. And so we will, move through these steps like we have in the past. So tonight we're going to go ahead and tell you about our vision for the North End Prairie, and also for putting home ownership within reach of more families in Bastrop. We want to give you a quick overview of the main points that we're going to make, just so that you know what we're going to cover this evening. Introductions, Bastrop's need for affordable housing, the process, sharing our vision for the North End Prairie, some information on parking and drainage, and then also who will be served through this community.
Yeah, so I'm Tom. I grew up in a small town in Connecticut where I went to college and grad school. I've had an extensive career in health insurance, and I have been able to be heavily involved in all the communities I've lived in, doing things that range from being a volunteer at an animal shelter all the way up through being on a local United Way board, where my focus was on the public policy committee and very specifically on housing, because housing needs have been important to me for years.
And I'm Jody. I am from a little bitty town, much smaller than Bastrop, in East Texas, and my career has been in public policy and law. And I have been involved with a lot of different nonprofit organizations over the years, and still am. We also want to say that if you feel like you have not heard enough yet about the North End Prairie, we are sorry. Especially if you live in an area of town where you feel like city government has not listened to you or has ignored your voices over the years. We recognize that we did not go to residents early in the process, and that was for a reason. It was because we didn't want to create more answers than questions before we had worked through a lot of the big issues, including things like drainage, like one of the things we're talking about this evening.
Yeah, and we're definitely sorry for that, and today we're here to provide information. So we're going to walk through some of those concerns, parking and drainage, and also tell the story, because we're really excited about this, because if there's one thing that Bastrop needs, it's more housing. So Bastrop needs housing, and it's not just us who are saying this. The projection is that there will be 15 years from now over 22,000 people living in Bastrop. They're going to need places to live. The city's comprehensive plan talks about providing home ownership opportunities for Bastrop's low and moderate income housing people, people who work in town, at the restaurants that we go to, at the schools that our kids go to. The Chamber of Commerce recognizes the importance of having additional housing and the idea of keeping options affordable. Anybody who's bought their house at least 10 years ago is, I'm sure, having conversations about how things have doubled, how they might not be able to afford their house today. And we are the only ones that we know of who are building houses that are at this size and therefore this level of affordability.
So the goal of the North End Prairie is to offer home ownership opportunities to those of more modest means. So towards that end, we created a nonprofit organization. It's called the Homes for Good Foundation, to carry this project forward. So we receive no compensation from this project. We receive no compensation from the nonprofit, nor will we receive compensation when the lots are sold. This is done through the nonprofit organization. As many of you know, also, my sister Carrie Fossler serves on the city council here. She also receives no compensation, nor has she in the past. She doesn't have a financial interest in this project. She's not connected with the nonprofit organization. She's not going to sell the homes in the neighborhood. And she has recused herself from the votes that city council will take on this project.
So the city manager talked a little bit about the process, but here's the flow chart that the city has that walks through all of the different steps. And we can see where we are. We are here. We're in the platting process. Things are moving along, and as she noted, we're 2.5 years into this process. So this is a process that is well underway.
This shows the property. It is in the North End, as the name implies. It is between Pecan and Hill Streets, just south of Linden. It is 4.2 acres. The plat that has been before the city staff has 37 residential lots on it. That is about 40 to 45 different buildings, and that will be 47 to 53 homes. That's because some of the homes are duplexes and some are ADUs, even though the most are single-family homes on their own lots. The community is affordable by design. That means footprints, homes with smaller footprints on smaller lots. That helps keep the cost to buyers down. So the square footage of the homes go from 400 square foot at the smallest up through 1,350 square foot, which is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath kind of home at the largest end. And the location, those of you who live in the neighborhood know these things, but for those of you who don't, it is very close to the senior center. It's just, half a block, 1 block from the senior center, which is the closest commercial building to the property, which makes it ideal for people who are, downsizing and go to the senior center a lot. It's 3 blocks from the high school. It's a block from Minerva Delgado Park, which is a nice, new, beautiful park. If you haven't, because it's pretty new, if you have not been there, then go. It's beautiful. And then it's just 2 blocks from the stadium and all the ball fields and the Colorado River Collegiate Academy.
So our thoughts about developing this property are nothing new. The city's master transportation plan shows a connection going through with Laurel Street connecting from Pecan to Hill. Today, if you want to get all the way from Main Street to Hill, there's like a 3/4 of a mile gap between Cedar and Linden. So you've got to go a long way around. And the city has recognized, hey, there's this open field and there's a great opportunity to run a road through it. The previous property owners had visions for developing this property, so we are not the first to be looking at this. We're just the latest in the chain of people who have been looking to develop this property. And if we look around, there aren't these sorts of infill lots available in the rest of town because they've all been developed. So it should come as a surprise to nobody that this property is being developed. So here's what the property looks like. And I may need your help on the pointer, but I think I've got it. Whoops. Oh, wrong button. There we go. Middle bit. Here we go. So we've got a park in, sorry. We have a park in the middle of the property. You can see that the road goes through from Pecan over to Hill. We've got smaller alleys that loop around in order to provide access to all of the different home sites. There is a detention pond in the southeast corner, which is really, of all the places in town, the most ideal for having a water detention pond. Why? Because this is the city's pipe that runs from the city's pond across our property and then off to the river. We have bungalow courts here, which are set to have all of the houses facing one another so that people can live in a community together within this property. So the big difference between what Sylvia had shown and what we have here is that we now have this on-site retention pond. So that's why what's in the back will look a little different.
These are inspirational photos for the homes, of the architectural style that we anticipate building homes in. That is a cottage style architecture. It is a mix of single-story and two-story homes that with front porches throughout, and the sort of type of architecture that you see a lot through central Bastrop. So this is, the North End Prairie is designed to be a good place to live, where neighbors have a lot of opportunities to interact with their front porches and the sidewalks, and also where folks who work in Bastrop have a shorter commute to work because it is pretty central. So it is designed for families who are working and have not been able to buy yet, but who want to buy a starter home. It should also be a good option for older adults who are looking to downsize and maybe live near their children or their grandchildren, and don't want a yard or much of a yard to take care of anyway. And because it's so close to the senior center and the high school and Minna Elementary, it's also walkable and bikeable to a lot of those places where community are in town. Also, just want to say that it's not just housing as a benefit, but local contractors and tradespeople will also be employed on the project. We are already doing that in the development process, but it will continue, as the project moves into the vertical building stage.
So let's talk about a couple of the questions or the concerns that people have had. The first is parking. So if you're wondering, where is parking going to be in this project? The answer is everywhere. There are more than 2 parking spaces per unit within this complex. If we talk about today's new codes, we have more parking spaces than are required by even the strict new codes that have been implemented by the city. So there is more than ample parking. How about stormwater drainage? Well, we have a pond, a water detention pond, which has, and our plan, preliminary drainage plan, has been approved by the city. And there are requirements around these drainage ponds and around drainage that require the drainage be at least as good as what's on the property today. So having this pond here and having the drainage will mean that there'll be some control of the water. We recognize that people have been adversely impacted by water in the past. And if we don't put this pond on there, you're going to continue to be susceptible to that no matter who does what on the property. So now we have a pond that's going to be there. And again, it is ideally located right next to the city's drainage infrastructure with a pipe that's going to take the water directly out, or eventually out to the river.
So when we talk about creating home ownership for more Bastrop families who are currently locked out of the market to buy, this is who we think might buy here. Retirees, so those, like I mentioned before, who might be downsizing or not wanting to have a big home where they raise their children and wanting something just smaller that's easier to maintain as they age. Veterans. So Bastrop has a higher percentage of veterans than other towns of this size, and we know that there is a lot of dialogue in the community about meeting the particular needs that they might have, including for housing and home ownership. There will be some opportunities for multi-generational households because there are a few duplexes, so that households who want to have different, like multiple generations living together, could do so, but having their own space. And then, of course, local employees, including teachers and those who work for the city and those who work at local businesses, who will have a shorter commute. Also, to emphasize that these are homes for sale. It's not a rental community, so these will be for home ownership. And thank you. So let's make this a little more tangible and give some specifics, because when we say affordable or attainable, that means different things to different people. In this case, it does not mean government subsidies or Section 8. That's not the type of housing that we are talking about. These will be available for home ownership, for purchase by households who are making up to 80% of the area median income. And what that means is about $68,000 annually for a household of one, and up to around $97,000, $98,000 for a household size of four. So those are, to put that in perspective, the average salary of teachers in Bastrop Independent School District is $60,000, and when the city was last hiring firefighters, the salary for that was around $56,000. So these are definitely, in range of the kind of salaries of sort of, people who are working jobs, doing things that support this community. And this is a way that helps support them by putting home ownership more within reach.
So, ask yourself, who do you know who struggles to buy a home here in Bastrop? Presumably everybody knows somebody who does. If you're a small business owner, if you have adult children who live here, if you have parents who want to own their own homes, I think everybody in this room knows somebody who could benefit for this sort of housing. So let's partner to help them fulfill that dream of home ownership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want something back up?
We are ready to take questions. Can I have you raise your hand if you have a question that you want to ask? Yes.
I think I can handle that. Heather Green, 2007 Pecan Street. Good evening, everyone. We are here tonight because we deserve real answers from the developers of the North End Prairie project. Transparency and respect should have been part of this process from the start, not something we have to fight for now. We are not uneducated or naive, and we should have never been treated as though we are. Did you think that you could push through this development without public input? Drainage is a serious concern. Many of us remembered the 2015 and 2016 floods all too well. This area floods. That's not speculation. It's lived experience. In fact, I have pictures in hand from the 2015 flood showing water high enough to flood the car parked in my driveway. How can you guarantee this project won't make the problem worse? Where is the independent study proving that the drainage system will work? The preliminary plat states that all drainage improvements will be privately maintained, but what assurances do we have that the maintenance of this will be properly managed? And let's not forget, the previous property owner had plans to develop here, but couldn't work through the drainage issues. Why should we trust that you now have it under control? Parking and emergency access are major issues. The proposed street in this development is only 26 feet wide. That raises serious concerns. Will fire trucks, ambulances, and police be able to get through when every second counts? On top of that, there are currently no street parking restrictions, meaning residents and visitors could park on both sides of Pecan Street and Hill Street, further narrowing the roads and creating dangerous congestion. When the designated parking fills up, where will the overflow go? Into our streets, further blocking emergency access and increasing safety hazards. How will you prevent this from happening? This project is an invasion of our personal space. The proposed street is only 22 feet from my side door and 10 feet from my driveway, eliminating my side yard entirely. Would you be okay with someone placing a street that close to your home? This is deeply personal for me. I have 2 children, ages 6 and 9, who play outside in our yard just about every day. They run, ride their scooters, and just be kids. If this project proceeds as proposed, their safe space disappears. Would you accept that your children's safety is treated as a minor inconvenience? The lack of transparency in this process is unacceptable. Why weren't the people in the neighborhood included in the conversation from the start? Why was this project kept under wraps for years, only for us to learn about it long after it began? Were you hoping to get this approved without public input? We finally have a chance to demand changes, so why did you think you could bypass us? These developers have shown no flexibility. We have seen zero effort to adjust your plans based on our concerns. Meanwhile, the developers at 540 West State Highway 71 have gone above and beyond what's required, even without being forced to by the new codes. Why aren't you doing the same for our community? The B3 code is failing, and this project proves it. You aren't partnering with anyone experienced in projects like this. Instead, you've turned to Matt Lewis, the creator of the Bastrop Building Block Code, B3. A code the city is actively dismantling because it does not work for us. If that code is already failing, why should our community be subjected to a development built on it? This project has only changed because it was forced to. It was originally submitted with 64 residential lots, and the only reason that number has been reduced is because the city required it, not because you cared enough to adjust your plan for the sake of the community. If you weren't forced to make changes, would you have considered doing so? So why should we trust you? I hear the developers continuing to push forward when this community has made it clear that we do not want this. To the City Council, I want to thank you for giving us a voice. We ask you to keep the residents of Bastrop in mind as this process moves forward. My home, my safety, my voice, along with those of my neighbors, must come before any developer's bottom line. And to my fellow residents, this is why your presence matters. Keep showing up, keep demanding answers. This is our community, and we have every right to fight for it. Thank you very much.
Hello. My name is David Michael Juarez. My family has property on the Linden Street, backing up to the North End Prairie Project. I'm here today saying I'm for this project on 2 different views. One, I am born and raised resident of Bastrop who has seen this area growing up as my grandparents bought the property some 80 plus years ago. And I remember as a kid playing outside, running around, playing next to the property. But, I also remember the mosquitoes being just as bad then as they are now. But that aside, I do see the good things about this project. Cleaning and making use of the property, beautifying the land, a park, overall giving people a nice place to live and call home. 2, I'm part of the team overseeing the development of the project. I came on as a drainage consultant later in the process and have quite a bit of input on the best ways to rectify the issues on the property. I believe the drainage plan that was submitted and accepted is a good plan and can help localize flooding on the property and surrounding community. I have family and friends and residents around the project who I've had interaction with in the past about flooding streets and other city issues. But I also should mention, I was employed with the City of Bastrop from 2016 to 2023. I was a public works superintendent. I handled all the streets and drainage issues, along with water, wastewater infrastructure inspections, and other issues that arose that other divisions would need help or input on. Prior to being employed with the city, I have worked all over the state, Central Texas, for the last 25 plus years in commercial, civil construction, infrastructure, land development, etc. I say this to give you a sense of my education background dealing with such as drainage. I was here when the flooding happened in 2015 or 2016, as me and my team were the ones putting out sandbags, helping residents with their homes and other emergencies. So I know and understand what happens here on the North End Prairie Project and the surrounding streets, Pecan, for instance. I've dealt with drainage and constructed new outlets of retainage structures to help alleviate the buildup of runoff and residents and business. I understand the frustration of surrounding residents. I've heard and read both sides of the issues, being for and against. You know, I'm born and raised here. I've seen a lot of change from like Super S to HEB and Winds to Walmart. So I get it. But I will say I'm glad to be a part of this project and having the input and a voice for the residents on one of the biggest issues that face the community, and specifically the community around the project. I can say the drainage plan that will be implemented will have a positive impact on the localized flooding on the property and water detention. I also believe that we'll be able to work with the city and other issues that arise, streets, drainage, utilities, et cetera. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Rick Joy. I live over there on Pecan Street, right next to Laurel. And I moved to Bastrop because similar development had happened all along Onion Creek, which I happened to live right on a little tributary that fed Onion Creek in Austin. And flooded out there, so we moved to Bastrop up on a hill out in the woods, and we burned out. Natural disasters are not something that surprises me anymore. I only see it getting worse. In 2015, we flooded, and in 2016, I believe, we flooded out twice. And I'm concerned that the city of Bastrop just isn't keeping it up, and I'm kind of losing my faith in government. City planners and engineers and drainage experts all around the country, I tell you. Because the weather's just getting worse, folks, and it just don't seem like the city puts a lot of thought into things. Like when they put that new park up down the street, they didn't tell anybody about it, but they did cut a sidewalk in alongside my property and raised it up about 4 to 6 inches off the ground, so that now my backyard floods even worse, just with a regular rain. So I'm pretty much terrified about this project, because I don't see any grass growing in this place. I see a swimming pool-sized retention pond, and I don't think it's going to handle squat as far as the runoff it's going to create. I think we're all going to turn this whole neighborhood down below this particular neighborhood into a flood zone. Every time you get a thunderstorm, people are going to be flooding out. And I don't see the city addressing the problems they have now with drainage, and yet they're going to let this project happen and make it even worse. So until we get an engineer in here that's worth its salt that can figure this out, I think we ought to put a stopper in this project, just for a while anyway. Because I personally got nothing against these folks, trying to make some low-income housing for some underprivileged people or some just average Joes. I think that's great. I just think it's the wrong place. I think it's a bad spot, and it's putting everybody in danger.
My name's Alex Henley. I actually wanted to speak, and I still will intend to speak for this, but I have a genuine question that I don't understand. I must not understand. We're going from absolutely no drainage solution at all to a drainage solution, and I'm failing to see why that's worse, or I don't know. Genuine. This isn't a loaded question. I really want to understand why it's worse. We're going from no solution to a solution.
My name is Cheryl, and I live across the street from the location. But right now, it's just an empty field. That means it's all pervious. Everything can soak in. The trees are going to pull down to the roots. The grass is going to soak it up. Whereas when you put all that asphalt and houses, you're diminishing that. So the ability of the land to absorb the water is going to go down. I don't want to go into it any further because I'm not an expert, but I know that. I have more to say later.
So just so everybody knows, the final drainage plan has not been approved. They have a preliminary, and that's a preliminary. When we go back to the slides, it's a preliminary that was based on a picture, a neighborhood regulating plan. So we've been working off of those things. A final drainage plan has not been approved. We have comments on the plats about the drainage plan. So I hear you. We're not there yet. So yes, so we're going to talk about, I said it before, and I know it's not a popular thing to say, but the emperor's not wearing any clothes. So the city, we flooded in 15 and 16, and we had a code rewrite happen. And that code rewrite, instead of addressing the drainage issues, actually increased the availability of impervious cover. And the way the rule is written is that pre and post must equal. In other words, if you flood right now and you're flooding an inch, whatever they build can still flood you an inch. That's not what they're shouldn't be intending to do, but that's the way the rules are written. We're aggressively changing those things too. What the rule says is they can't make it any worse, which is why their retention pond is, 14 feet, 10? And so 400,000 gallons. And so what that means is it should capture everything that is running off. I understand what everybody is saying. Concrete makes things run off faster. And so we are not at a point of accepting a final drainage plan yet. They are far from a building permit. I just want everybody to understand that. They are far from a building permit.
Hello, my name is Lucy Todd, and I know many of you out here. I'm 84 years old. My husband and I have been living here for 27 years, and in that time we've been very active in with community organizations, and now we live in the colony. And why do we live in the colony? Because we're no longer physically able to keep up our house on Main Street, the house we love dearly. And the house is 130 years old. The lot is 3/4 of an acre, and it was just too much. We came we didn't want to leave Bastrop, but we couldn't find any houses in the downtown that were newish. I mean, we didn't want an old house we'd have to keep fixing up. So when we heard about this project, and we talked to Jody, and we thought that was pretty exciting. And still do. It's a great project. And I'm not saying that we're poor, but we were literally just leaking money all over the place trying to keep up our house. Now, one thing that we've noticed is that a lot of our friends and relatives, not relatives, our friends, have been talking about the same predicament. They're no longer able to keep up these old houses. They want a new place to live. And so I'm all for new development. And in Bastrop, because the colony is still Bastrop County, but it's not the city. And I don't get to come in as much as I would like. I don't drive after dark. It's just a big deal to come all the way in. And I have to plan to do like 7 things in one trip. We still want to be involved in organizations, but more and more we see that we're just not going to be able to do that. And we're thinking about all the elderly people who've been here for a long time who are going to be in the same boat. And so we need this kind of housing that we're talking about. I think the city officials should think long and hard before prohibiting this housing. I feel as if it's kind of a slap in the face to all of us old people who've worked so hard to make this community great, and now there's no place for us in the community. Thank you.
My name's Willie Olarosa. I live 5 blocks west of this proposed development. And I have a question for Sylvia, a couple of questions for Ms. Manager here, please. You mentioned on the planning process that you mentioned earlier, but I want to ask you, thank the council if this is true, that you're in the process of doing something with the B3 code and concerning minimum lot size. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I commend y'all for that, because why it was omitted or overlooked in 2019, nobody knows. But what I'm going to say now is that we dealt with this particular project years ago. 2 of my colleagues in here, sitting in here tonight, they know what I'm talking about. Didn't get off the ground because of poor drainage. Young man over there spoke about the drainage. I don't know if he's telling us the drainage is good today, but we're not going to take that chance. These neighbors didn't ask for this in their backyard. They don't want it. They don't need it. But here's what we need to do. We need to fix this so they don't have to keep coming back year after year worrying about if somebody's going to develop. Everybody that's probably for this project needs to ask themselves, do you want a high-density neighborhood in your backyard? And I'll guarantee all of them are going to say no, but I want it, but not in my backyard. So, but the planning question I want to ask you is going through the planning process now, correct?
Correct.
Okay, years ago, the state law said when people started development, and the city had current rules in place, and they turned in a plat, the city couldn't do anything about that, but they had to have, unless they had their preliminary plat was approved, the city couldn't do anything. But the city can do things if they didn't have a preliminary plat. The city could change the rules. Is that true or not today?
So it's half true. So so that's the grandfathering request that they sent. So we are in the process of amending. Well, we did amend minimum lot sizes now because we didn't have a lot size minimum, which is why some of those lot sizes are what they are. But they are grandfathered on certain things, and lot sizes are one of them. What they're not grandfathered are on impervious cover and the parking ratios. They are not grandfathered on that. So they're going to, and the parking is on-site parking. What you saw in the plat is a shared parking. What's required in the code is on-site parking. 1 parking space per bedroom, 10 by 20. If there's a deviation that's requested of that, it has to go via a variance process to the Planning and Zoning Commission and then ultimately the City Council.
So are y'all, the city, when I say y'all, is the city asking them to take Laurel Street all the way through to Hill Street?
So there is a connection that is from Pecan that goes all the way to Hill Street through the neighborhood. Okay. It is a private street, and that was at staff's request, my request, because that street doesn't serve anybody but this neighborhood. Okay. It's unlikely that somebody's going to purposely make that turn with the cars in that area to get to the other side. So it is really genuinely only serving this neighborhood.
And I understand what you said, if they cross the T's and dot all their I's.
Well, they haven't yet. Okay, they haven't yet.
Well, I'm getting there, and here's
yes.
what I'm getting to.
Yes.
If they do, the city doesn't really have any recourse in stopping this, am I right?
Correct.
Okay. That leads me to my next question. This ends up y'all do something and it ends up in a lawsuit, and the city loses, the big losers are the neighborhood. So we need to figure out a way to make it work so this neighborhood doesn't have to go through this. And one solution that I would ask, if it's at all feasible, would the city and the BDC consider buying that property from these developers and holding on to it, finance it through the BDC, through their sales tax money for a long term maybe, till y'all figure out what kind of development will work in there. And the neighborhoods, they get their money back from the development, neighborhood's happy, and the city has the property. That's my option.
So, creative idea, but unless they offer to sell it, I'll go to jail for a quid pro quo saying I'll do this. And I keep telling you, I'm not going to jail for anybody.
Well, I get that, but what I'm trying to say,
Sure, sure.
trying to protect the neighborhood. I mean, that's
Sure.
Nobody
Sure.
wants a high density neighborhood, and that's all the B3 code was good for, to create high density neighborhoods. And nobody wants it in their backyard. Nobody.
Yep.
Thank you.
So the density numbers under the now code will change, and that's because the lot size minimums. Now you're going to be able to probably get 4 units an acre. 4 units an acre. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Green, 2007 Pecan Street. I'm here tonight not just as a resident, but as someone personally impacted by the very issues this development dismisses. The developers would have us believe that our concerns, flooding, lack of transparency, dishonesty, and inadequate emergency access, are nothing more than minor inconveniences. That statement alone tells you everything you need to know about their priorities. Flooding is not merely an inconvenience. It is an unfortunate reality in this area with costly consequences. When I was 16, severe flooding destroyed both my mother's car and mine. My first car, a milestone she made possible while putting herself through college as a single parent. The financial strain fell entirely on her. Like many in this area, we were left to deal with the pricey aftermath on our own. Now, these developers want to build in a flood-prone area with no clear plan to mitigate the risks. When asked about their plans, they offer no specifics, just vague reassurances that contradict their previous statements. This isn't just poor planning, it's negligence. To dismiss a problem of this magnitude as a minor inconvenience is not only inaccurate, but a blatant disregard for those who've experienced its impact firsthand. Beyond the flooding issue, their lack of transparency is concerning. They claim this project has been in the works for years, yet residents whose homes directly border this proposed development were only recently made aware of it. This approach comes across as evasive and disingenuous. Their plans and intentions have shifted depending on who they're speaking to, further eroding any trust in their sincerity. If they cannot demonstrate honesty now, there is no reason to believe they will act in good faith once construction begins. Another concern is that of parking and vehicle access. With the inclusion of more homes, an already busy street will ultimately become more congested. Increased traffic, tighter roadways, and additional strain on an already busy area raise serious safety concerns. How do they plan to ensure that emergency vehicles can respond without delay? Moving forward without addressing this is reckless and irresponsible. These concerns are far from hypothetical. They are urgent, real issues that will have a significant impact on current residents. Many of these individuals have devoted decades to overseeing the growth and development of this community, contributing to its evolution only to see their concerns minimized and dismissed as mere inconveniences. However, these issues are anything but minor. They are fundamental challenges that go to the heart of what makes this community thrive, and they demand thoughtful, tangible solutions. Ignoring them would not only undermine the hard work of those who have built this place, but also jeopardize its future stability and well-being. The issues with this proposed development are impossible to ignore. Failing to engage with current residents to discuss how these changes will impact their lives reflects a profound disregard for their concerns. When planning significant alterations to a community, the minimal expectation should be to initiate a dialogue with those who will be most affected, listen to their worries, and address their needs. Instead, we were left uninformed and excluded from the process. This isn't merely a lapse in communication, it's a deliberate decision to ignore the very people who will be most impacted. A development built on dishonesty, disregard, and dismissal of real concerns has no place in this community. Thank you.
First, I want to apologize for my attire. This is not how you usually see the president of the chamber dressed. But after getting 4 text messages from this room, I felt like I couldn't stay at home and watch this online. And this is why. So this flyer that was passed out, I would like to read what our statement is on housing. Our current statement from our 2025-2026 legislative priorities. It says, on housing, promote the development of income-aligned and diverse housing solutions to meet the needs of all residents, helping to attract and retain skilled workforce in our community. So this is an outdated statement, and also putting this on here insinuates that we have taken a position as the Bastrop Chamber of Commerce on this proposed development, which we have not. I want to make that very clear. And it's pretty sad when I have to keep saying point of clarification. I can show you a comment on Ms. Carrie Fossler's, Councilman Fossler's post about this development from YouTube, where she talked about the chamber talking about affordable housing for the last 10 years as a chamber. I went back and searched our records, and we have not had this on an agenda until February of 2023. And she talked about us talking about this issue for 10 years, which we have not. So again, point of clarification, I had a conversation with Councilman Fossler about this, about how I felt like she was misrepresenting the chamber, and she was relying on our credibility as the Chamber of Commerce in this region. And so it goes back to transparency, and I don't think there is transparency in this situation.
Hi, my name is Cheryl. I'm a resident of Pecan Street. I've been a resident of Bastrop since 1981, and I'm the owner of Bastrop Montessori. I have a lot to say. I'm very wordy. I'm going to try and trim it down. First, I want to really acknowledge y'all for your vision, Jody, and I've already, not Jody, yes, and Tom, for your vision. I'm all for people, you know, real working people having affordable, nice housing. And Pecan Street's a beautiful neighborhood, you know, they should be so lucky to live there. You know, I mean, I consider myself lucky to live there, so I really appreciate what y'all are trying to do, and really appreciate Heather for all the work that you've been doing to kind of like keep this up in the conversation. I think it's a major oversight that for whatever reason y'all didn't elect to talk to us, whether it was required or not. And I think, you know, it's pretty obvious that that's had a major impact, you know, on how the project is perceived now and how much people are willing to trust going forward. I certainly have that. You know, a lot of people have talked about the drainage, so I'm not going to go on about that because I'm also concerned about that. And I know a lot of people are talking about the parking. I'm not going to mention that because it's already been mentioned. But one of the things that I do want to talk about is, like, regardless of the parking, the traffic on Pecan Street. And you know, my house faces Pecan Street. I'm on my front porch often. I was out on my front porch yesterday. Somebody zoomed past from Mesquite down toward Chestnut. They must have been going 60 miles an hour. There are no, because of the way the streets are laid out, there are no natural places for stop signs. And the last I knew, the city wasn't willing to put in speed bumps in these strange little street neighborhoods. So we've got people just going way too fast up and down these neighborhood streets with kids trying to play and dogs. I walk every day. You know, I'm in peril of my life. You know, I mean, I pay attention, but it's dangerous. And if you're going to add 54 more houses with 50 to 80 or 100 more cars, it sounds like, that's a lot more traffic on a street that's not designed for it. when school lets out, there at Mina, the traffic from Chestnut is backed up, waiting for people waiting to get around the corner onto whatever street that is while they're trying to pick up their kids. And if we add another however many cars, this is going to be where the street's not designed for it. It's just not designed for it. And that is, that's got to be one of my major concerns. I'm just going to look at my notes. I really loved your idea, sir, about, maybe if y'all were even interested in offering the property back to the city, of the city being willing to buy it and look at something that really would work for the neighborhood. I loved that idea. But I also think that even if you were willing to, even though you have jumped through so many hoops and you've gotten so many levels of okay, that you all voluntarily put yourself back into whatever the new system is, make sure that you're getting feedback and okay from the community, and looking at the real character of the neighborhood, which, I think the average lot size is half an acre probably in that neighborhood. I know mine's a third and my neighbor's is 3/4 of an acre. So half an acre is about average, I would guess. So even that at 4 acres, that'd be 8 houses, 12 houses, which I know would impact affordability, but it's in keeping with the character of the neighborhood as it exists. And that, I think, is what the people who live there are really concerned about. We moved there for a particular reason, and I know we all want affordable housing, not in our own backyard, just to be a little silly. And I think that also you guys are ending up having to pay the price of some of the city council and the planning and zoning's mistakes. One of the things that I was looking at in getting ready for this meeting is the city's motto, which is part of which reads, to preserve our history and character of our neighborhoods while embracing progress around our unique environment. And I think that putting 40 to 50 houses inside an already established neighborhood is not respecting our history and character, and certainly not our unique environment. And thank you. And then the other thing that I saw on the city's website is their focus, and there is a piece about communication, and it says that their mission is to support and enhance two-way communication between city and residents and businesses. And again, y'all were just following the protocol it was laid out, but you can voluntarily choose to consult with us and honor our feelings in the matter of the development of our neighborhood. And that is part of the city's focus. And I want to thank everyone who worked to put this meeting together, and for y'all for all the work that you've done. And again, for your mission. I'm a big fan. And the older woman was saying, that people who've grown up and developed Bastrop, it's nice to have, everybody here. So that's it. Thank you.
My name is Taylor Helmuth, and I have a question for the developers. I am a real estate agent. I've worked on a couple of condo projects in Austin, and they limited the number of units that could be sold to investors, as well as some neighborhoods that limited short-term rental. Do y'all have any plan to limit either one so that these houses are actually bought by citizens in Bastrop that afford it?
Yes, both.
Good evening, neighbors, members of the council. My name is Carrie Kaler, and I live at 1408 Wilson Street with my husband, Phil, and our son, who's been babbling away during this meeting, so my apologies. Phil and I were blessed to be able to purchase our home in Bastrop during COVID in 2020. I grew up about 12 miles from here out in the country and knew that when we wanted to start our home ownership journey, that we wanted it to be in this community alongside all of you. And 2020 was a singular moment for us where our finances and the economy aligned, allowing us to make a purchase. We would have been unable to own our home prior, and we certainly would be unable to purchase it in the current economy. I know that having folks like Jody and Tom present this option for other families would be a blessing for them, as owning our own home has been a blessing for us. As a new mom who has been committed to public service, I know firsthand the challenges of balancing the responsibilities of caregiving with the demands of work. I know what it's like to drive 80 miles a day to serve a community where I could never afford to live. And then come home on a long night after a long day at work and take care of my family. Affordable housing is more than just a necessity, it's a lifeline. Affordable housing means stability, it means security, and it means peace of mind. For me, it allows me to focus on nurturing my child without the constant worry of whether I can afford a safe place to call home. Public service professionals, like we talked about earlier this evening, teachers, firefighters, police officers, they give so much to our community. And unfortunately, the wages often don't match the cost of living. That's the reality in America right now. It's not just about shelter, it's about giving families the opportunity to thrive. It's about allowing mothers to work without fear of eviction or displacement. It's about providing children a chance to grow up in a safe, stable environment where they can learn, play, and dream. And for those who have committed their lives to serving others, whether it's teachers, police officers, firefighters, city staff, income-based housing is essential in allowing that continuation of service while allowing us to care for our most precious responsibility, which is our families. Bastrop is hiring right now, if you weren't aware. But unfortunately, there's very little housing to match. Having somebody in the community, Jody and Tom, who are looking to address this issue and not make a dime, to me is a tremendous offering for our community, and I appreciate all the work you've done on this. Thank you so much. Having housing that is walking distance to work is a no-brainer. Take it from somebody who drives 80 miles every single day. So I hope that our community will choose to see this as an opportunity. It's certainly something that I would be grateful for if I were starting this journey now. I thank you for your time, and I feel confident that the developers can work with the city staff and address people's concerns the way the city requires and the way state law requires. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Robert Kraft. There seems to have been a lot of kind of ad hominem attacks on Jody and Tom, and I just got to say that I know them personally. They are honest, straightforward, kind-hearted people with the best intentions. And maybe there were some miscommunications, et cetera, but that should not be put on them as like a character flaw or something. But I run a small nonprofit in Bastrop that deals with the needs of musicians, providing performance opportunities, private music instruction for our school kids, and musical instruments and equipment for those in need. I moved to Bastrop County in 2011 because Austin had just gotten too expensive for a working musician and artist to afford to buy a home. I arrived just in time to lose my new home and all my possessions in those big fires you might have heard about. I was able to rebuild on the original property with the help from this community and the good people of Bastrop County. And I'd just like to point out that this land is going to be developed at some point. The future is here. You can't stop it. It's just a question of what kind of development do you want to see. These drainage issues, these parking issues, all of this stuff are going to have to be resolved, and it seems like they're in the process of being resolved. But Bastrop is growing, and there's no stopping it. And I think it's preferable to invest in the kind of development that will encourage the average working family in Bastrop to stay in the city where they live and work. School teachers, bus drivers, service industry workers, artists, musicians, homemakers, veterans, construction workers, healthcare workers all deserve access to affordable housing and an opportunity to invest in the community and raise their families in the town that they are such a vital part of. Thank you.
Pablo. Are you going to go? I'm going to go up to it. Go ahead. Yes. I'm not going to read. I did write a number of things down. Pablo Stern, 1104 Hill Street. I'm not that far from this, really close to here. But I think this really boils down to two sides of the same coin, affordability and density. And that's something that we're struggling right now as we're growing rapidly. We are growing. There's no doubting that we're going to grow fast. And we knew that. I was just looking on this website. I was part of that B3 code, that effort as we were putting that together. I think Cynthia, there were some other people. Ishmael was here. Doc, I think you're on it also. So a lot of people got together, really tried to do the right thing. It's been pointed out, and I think rightly so, that there were some mistakes. You know, we probably are looking at, you know, maybe density is the big issue. I think that I've seen that we need to really look at. There's a lot of ways to look at density. I look at it like you know, we can all relate to the cost of gas per gallon. Okay, density is that. It's that factor. You know, the higher the gas goes up, the more you spend on it. Well, density has a factor too. Sylvia, you mentioned 4 units per acre. Is that 0.25 now, or? Okay. Okay. And are we still allowing up to 2 ADUs that they can fit it? So if they can fit it and park it, that's 3 times right there. So that's 1, but you can put 2 additional dwelling units on there. So make no mistake, that is 3 dwelling units in that 1 lot. I did look at the site. I did wanted to have something so I can say something intelligently here. There are 19 lots touching this property. If every one of those 19 lots did what they could do by the current amendments right now as they stand, they would all be grandfathered in to do this. You could build out 57 units. That's 19 times 3. That's 57 lots. That could be 57 dwelling units all around this, and they're trying to do 42. So just to give you perspective, this is dense because they're doing the density right now. But everybody, we're allowing density right now. And I've been saying this from the beginning that if we're trying to fix this, we need to look at density. We need to look at density unit per acre. It's like the cost of gas. We need to bring the cost of gas down. When you look at density and say, what is reasonable in the historic district, what could that be? But right now, it's sitting at 9 dwelling units per acre. 9 dwelling units per acre. This project, if you divide 42 by 3.96, that yields 10.6. The point I want to make to you is it's not that much more dense than what you have, what you can do right now. So if we're going to go to these people and say, look, we don't want it in my backyard, your backyard can already do a lot. In fact, your backyard, you can put 2 dwelling units in the backyard if you can do it right now. If you want to stop density, you need to go to the council, tell your council members, planning and zoning, we want to limit density. We really want to limit density. When we limit density, I told you about that coin, right? Affordability to density. When you limit density, you're going to limit affordability. So my answer to affordability has to be done in the right places. Maybe, as you said, maybe this isn't the right place, or maybe we need to look at that calculation and see what could happen. Right now, there's nothing there. And guarantee you, this will get drained right. It's an engineering question. I know plenty of engineers in my 30 years of doing work. This is a math problem for them. They will solve that math problem, and they will get it right. So drainage is not the issue. It's density. If you want to do with density, I think that's where we need to start. I'm for affordable housing. Like I said, it's 2 sides of the same coin. But if you're for affordable housing, then you're for a little bit of density. We just need to find that right balance, right? We need to find that right balance. I applaud them for being open about this. I was mentioning to you, Heather, that you know what? A lot of developers don't do this. They don't have to do this. They're choosing to do this, and I think they're trying to make a good faith effort to try to do it right. They choose to show up. Did you want to be here? Did you? Oh, okay, I'm not asking them so.
I will say this, that having done development a little bit and working with a lot of developers, especially developers out of town, they'll never show up, okay? The B3 code, I know people wanna run it through the ground. That B3 code is like a custom suit it's a living document that we need to keep working out. I encourage everyone to really try to understand it better. If we need to fix it. There are problems with it, and I think we're trying to fix that. You know, Sylvia's committed to that, and they've lined up a bunch of things to do that with planning and zoning, so I applaud planning and zoning and the city staff. But this is one of those issues right now. It's a big lot. There's nothing on it. They can do something with it by right, and the question really is, what can they do? Because just to say, not in my back, where I live right now, my neighbor who has a little house changed that into a duplex, and I got 2 ADUs right next to me. So density's hitting me too. But I'm telling you, I understand that because I want to live here, and I want to be able to get out and walk to the store, watch a show, walk downtown. So we do need to address density. I hope that we can start doing that. I hope you hang in there. I mean, I think the easy thing to do is to say, I'm out. But it's the developers. This is where you find out about what kind of developers are working with you, the ones that are going to come and stick with you to the end. I hope you do.
So council is addressing the density issue. Right now, there's one ADU. You've got to park it, you've got to drain it. But yes, we are absolutely concerned about what you can and how many can end up on a lot.
Thank you. My name is Belinda Hofer. I was born and raised here in Bastrop. I was born in 1960, so I've gotten firsthand view on everything. Only lived away a short amount of time, but Bastrop's home. And with a lot of these people here, we have the same experience. And I guess part of my question is, I love what you're doing. I just don't like where you're doing it. You know, and I think that would be probably the majority of us where we speak, because we think it's a wonderful idea because, right, there is a need, but the location is the problem. So back when I was growing up, that was over the tracks. Nobody lived there except Hispanics and blacks, you know. And now it's like, you know, everybody wants it. It was just kind of amazing to us. So we've been through it, yeah, through all the years, and we've seen, you know. And it's only been more recently, I don't even know when exactly the time frame, but it's only been more recently in my lifespan that we've always, that things have started to look more appealing. Everybody's looking for that property. My question is, what was the main thing that drew you to Bastrop? If you're just coming in, you weren't original here, what was it that you found about Bastrop that you liked a lot? Because that would really be the questions. You're asking us to change the things that we grew up with that we loved about Bastrop because we're still here. And like I said, I love the idea. Don't get me wrong. We agree with those things, I think the majority of us. Okay, it's just the location and the thing. Because now you're asking people that have been planted here since they've been born to change their whole lifestyle and what they go about doing. I just don't agree with that. I'm sorry. I have, like I said, I've got my grandparents' place. We're on Linden Street, so we've gotten to see a little bit of everything. And when they moved in, things like the baseball field and the senior center, all that was okay. It wasn't central housing. But the flooding, they're right, it's issues. Back on Linden Street, back in my aunt's place, well, which is mine now, in the back of that place, there's always been flooding. And they put in the sidewalks to make it better, but like somebody else mentioned, it made it worse, you know? So there are issues like that. But again, I just ask you to keep in mind the fact that what is it that you really loved about Bastrop, you know? Yes, we do agree it's growing. We know there's going to be changes whether we like them or not. I work with the Rural Water Company, and I see outside the city limits how fast we're growing. But again, there as well, you know, there's things happening there. There's people holding on because somebody was saying something about having to give up and having to do. No, we don't. We don't. I mean, we choose to keep our property, keep our places because we love it, you know. And I know financially it's rough on some people. We get that. But that's why I'm saying that part I'm very much in agreement with. But overall, no. We'd like our house, the place the way it is. Thank you.
So I do want to address that because that's the reason the council changed the lot size minimums to larger because, and we called it the built environment because Lincoln Street has 70, foot setbacks, and some of the other neighborhoods have perhaps 15 and 20-foot setbacks, some have 25. And so because we wanted to keep Bastrop's integrity, we said the built environment to match what you're doing. There's also a tool called the PDD, a Plan Development District, that allows smaller things to go in if you can put in the infrastructure and you do it. And then somebody brought up the development on 71. That's exactly what that is. So there's a tool to do this. They didn't have to come under a PDD, so I want to make that very clear. They came under the rules that were in place with the B3 as it was. The B3 is a new urban code. You mentioned that. It is an urbanism code. It is absolutely, if you go read the preambles, it is absolutely densification. Because the belief among some planning circles is the denser the area, the greater the tax revenue. Well, it's been proven once you have to maintain the streets and the sewer and the drainage, that has a point of diminishing return. So the council recognized we love Bastrop for its open spaces, for its clean water, for its, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so there are tools to do that. I just want to make sure they didn't have to meet those tools. Any other questions?
My name is Rebecca Schaefer. I live on the corner of Hill and Pine in the south end of town. On the issue of traffic, with 42 new houses, there's a possibility of 84 additional vehicles being added to this neighborhood. During the school year, the block in front of Colorado River Collegiate Academy is closed during the school day. The block between Farm and Beach at Mena Elementary is also closed off while school is in session and during the summer. Pecan and Main Street will be taking the brunt of traffic in and out of this area. Using Mesquite or Hawthorne to get to Highway 95 is pretty much taking your life in your own hands. Another thing, there were two words which keep coming up: minor inconvenience. I believe that Tom used these words to describe the effect this project would take to the existing residents in this area. I'll bet you wish you could take that quote back. This was a bad choice of words and very disrespectful to the longtime residents and taxpayers that live around your proposed project. Using the term affordable housing seems to be a catchphrase. The Gateway people use that term too.
Hi, my name's Patty Peebles. I live on 2006 Pecan Street. My main concern, most of it, well, a lot of this has all been touched on already. I feel sure that drainage could be, is going to be addressed in some form, and so I'm not worried about those issues as much as the neighborhood having that dense population stuck in the middle. It's not just on a street, it's inside of a whole field that's surrounded by the backs of other houses, and the narrow street coming in and out, like you said, it's going to be mostly on Pecan, which is a narrow street enough as it is, with a lot of traffic, because we already have new houses, which is fine, but there's already quite a bit of traffic. And there's school kids that walk, the high school's there, kids walk on the street there, back and forth, and, a lot of us are out, families riding bikes, people walking, like me, walking my dogs. And that is like, if you've got 40 households, and it's 40 to 50 households, and there's 1 or 2 cars per household, you're right, 80 cars, maybe 100 cars, for two cars per household. If that's a lot. If 40 is a lot of cars, just coming right in and out of that area and up and down the street, that's a lot of traffic. And it's a narrow street already. If someone's parked on the side of the street, which happens when you have a visitor, you have to stop and wait. 2 cars can't pass. You have to wait for somebody, and go through. But that could be that would be constant. If there's people parked on the street and you've got cars running up and down, it's going to change it a lot. I mean, it's going to really change the character of that street. It's not going to feel at all like a little neighborhood street anymore. It's going to be a thoroughfare. And it's already pretty dense traffic, I think, at least at certain times of day. There's a lot of cars that drive pretty quick driving down the street. So that's probably my biggest lingering concern. And for the houses that are surrounding that field, that beautiful field, and then those two houses where the narrow entrance is going to go through right by Heather's house and then the other side of that, it's a very narrow spot, and that's going to be a lot of cars just coming in and out at any time of day or night, you know. I mean, it will be their house. They can come in whenever and go out whenever they want. So, you know, that I mean, I do believe in affordable housing and making things affordable for other people, but just that location, because of those things, the being enclosed like that, it doesn't seem like the best place for that. It changed things a lot.
Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Phil Hurley. I live at 1408 Wilson Street. This is a fantastic debate. I'm glad to hear all these points of view. I'm learning, and I appreciate everybody's input. One of the things I just kind of wanted to add in, I've only been here for a few years, but I play music for a living, and I've gotten to know a lot of our local business owners. One of the reoccurring complaints or concerns I'm hearing from local business owners is that they can't keep people employed. There's not enough folks who want these lower, they're not top tier $100,000 a year jobs, but they're not able to keep cooks. They're not able to keep bus-boys, waiters, wait staff. They need more people who can live here in town that can fill those positions. I know that I hear so many people saying, not near me, not near me, but there will be a benefit to the whole community if there are new people who are going to afford to actually be in our town to fill these jobs that'll make the whole town kind of rise up together. So I see all sides of it, but I also, there's another, I hadn't heard anybody address that I do hear, and I play music for a living. Musicians don't make a lot of money. We do it because we love it. It's hard for my friends, most of them will never own a home. And so the idea like that I see these numbers of of a home at that kind of price, I have friends who could maybe pull that off. The fact that they could potentially have something to claim as their own and raise their family in or something like that, that to me seems like a pretty noble cause. So my 2 cents. Thank you.
Alex, you already went. I'm giving opportunity.
Sylvia, here, I'll give this one.
Hey, Jack Plimpton. I live about 3 blocks away by the high school. I wanted to, I guess, answer the question that was asked, what brought you to Bastrop? Because my wife and I moved here 2.5 years ago. And I could tell you the story about how we went to the music festival and how lovely it was, and that was a big reason why we moved here. But the honest truth was safety. And that hasn't been something that's been talked about a bunch. My wife and I came from Chicago, which we lived close to affordable housing. Before that, she's from New Orleans. We lived close to affordable housing. I've been supportive of affordable housing. It's lovely. It's a lovely idea, but it just doesn't really actually uplift the town. It ends up sinking it. It ends up sinking the area around it. And I would love to have neighbors as sweet as the older lady who spoke earlier. I would really love that, but frankly, that's not my experience. It's not the reality that I've lived in, and we moved to here so that way my wife could walk around town, not be worried about her safety. She's been chased by a naked madman before in Chicago. I mean, I could tell you horror story after horror story, and I just am feeling so nervous. I moved my family here to raise a family here. I worry about the safety, the flooding, whatever else. I probably agree with you guys, but that's not my concern. My concern is my family, and I brought them here. And I just, 3 out of 4 times, we lived in Memphis, we lived in Gainesville, we lived in New Orleans, we lived in Chicago, we've lived near affordable housing. I've supported it, love the idea, don't love the effects of it, to be honest. So I don't really have a question. I just have to kind of speak from my experience. I love this community. It seems to be on the up and up. That's why everyone's coming here. That's why everyone loves it. And I see the problem, and I don't doubt the intentions, but I really worry about the solution. So thank you.
Please forgive me for not standing, but I have a very painful issue in my spinal column right now, so I'm going to sit. But my name is Susan Long. I was born in Bastrop. My mom and dad had a business on Main Street, and anyway, Mom also had a fine arts preschool at our home when I was growing up. So anyway, I love Bastrop. I've lived in Austin. I've owned a home in Austin, and I don't miss Austin. I love Bastrop. It's a very special place. And this community that already exists there, not talking about anything new right now, it is so sweet and precious. If you haven't driven over there, you need to. It is absolutely precious. And it will lower your blood pressure a bunch just to go over there and be there for a while. It's a very tranquil and very loving area. You just pick up on that, and the neighbors are really sweet. Anyway, I'm looking at the number of cars that could possibly happen, with the current, project that is looking at it. So if, each house had one car, that's 53 cars. 2 cars is more obvious. That's pretty much it. The mom's got to have a car, or the wife's got to have a car. The fathers have to, not to mention the school-age kids that can drive. So anyway, the street now, I'm looking at, if you exit onto Hill Street, in that neighborhood right now, it's very narrow. There are no sidewalks, and I don't think there's the capacity to ever build sidewalks without taking away somebody's front yard. And they don't exactly have humongously large front yards right now. So anyway, the possibility of, 106 cars, that's a lot of cars, okay? No matter where they go out, whether it's on Pecan or whether it's on the hill, it's going, to be an issue. But if you haven't visited the community that's there now, I encourage you to go over and visit. It is the most remarkable, loving, sweet, precious neighborhood. And I guarantee you it will lower your blood pressure. And I want to do everything that I can do as a lifetime resident of Bastrop. Now, I did live in Austin for a while, and I worked for the Texas Forest Service, and I responded to disasters all over, even to Hurricane Katrina, and ran medical units. So I have medical background too, but I just look at emergency management, and I look at quality of life. And it is wrong for us to impose a change on that current neighborhood that's going to change their quality of life. It's wrong in so many ways. Now, if we can get around that, hey, I'm willing to listen. But right now, I see that it's going to affect it adversely. So I encourage you to go over there, visit the current neighborhood while it's still as precious and sweet as it is. And, think about what we can do to save that neighborhood and yet provide housing, for others. Again, looking at this project, if there's 2 cars per unit, you're looking at 106 cars. And so that's a lot of cars. And they're not all going to go to Pecan Street. And a lot of them are going to try to come down Hill Street. But again, it's narrow. There are no sidewalks. So there's a huge safety issue involved. So the safety officer is through talking now. Thank you for listening, and please go visit this sweet neighborhood.
Bastrop's finest. We have a group of high school students from the local government club who are going to be working with the city, and I asked them the question, have you rethought public service after tonight? So.
Yeah, it's definitely, my name is Zoe Moreno. I'm a senior at Bastrop High School. It's definitely a big weight to have on your shoulders, so I respect you so much, Sylvia. I'd like to add a little point to this traffic congestion problem that seems to be coming up. This housing is for people who can't afford it. The average income for households that have a used vehicle is $96,000. These people that are going to come live in these houses, they are not bringing 2 cars. I can assure you that we're not going to have 100 cars. The max amount of these parking lot spaces, they're not going to be all filled. These are for people, these are for our teachers, these are for our veterans, these are for our elderly that don't have enough income already to have multiple vehicles in their home. So I'd just like to offer that viewpoint when we're considering the traffic congestion. I really believe it's coming out of a place of fear, and it's valid, it's definitely valid. But when we think about the logisticals, like the logistics of 100 cars coming out of this neighborhood, that reasonably doesn't sound correct. These are for people that can't afford a home. These are for people who definitely can't afford basic living necessities, and it's really important that we approach this project with an empathetic viewpoint. So thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. I don't mean to scare you, but when we do a traffic peaking factor, it's, even if I just do 1 unit, that peaking factor is 9.35 average daily trips, what we call ADT. So even if we do 42 units times 9 is the average traffic that would be coming out of that neighborhood when we look at the traffic and we look at how we've got to address the street. So.
Well, I think, my name is Nick Pacheco, I'm at 1003 Linden. I think it's kind of funny that a lot of these people that are talking don't live in that neighborhood, and they don't understand. That's an old neighborhood. Everybody there takes care of everybody. I mean, I'm really, it was a slap in the face to me that we never knew nothing about this until about 3 months ago. We should have been told about this a long time ago. Thank you.
I'm Charles Picorni. I'm more of a numbers guy, and I've been here for 39 years. I've seen the flooding problems there. I heard you guys say it was 400,000 gallons for runoff. That's awesome, but that's realistically, that's like 20 swimming pools. Whenever it floods, 3, 4, 5 feet deep. The land alone, it absorbs, let's say, I'm pretty sure it absorbs about 30,000 gallons every inch per acre. So it's not realistic. It sounds like a great idea. I'm all for what you guys are doing. I think it's awesome. The houses are beautiful. People do need it. Unfortunately, like my man from Chicago over there said, it's not. I mean, how are you going to guarantee that it's going to be all teachers and veterans and workers? It's realistically, it's not. With that comes devalue. It's going to devalue the homes that's already been established there for 60, 70 years. They've kept up with their homes. What are they supposed to do? It seems like a great idea, but and another point, what did bring you guys to that specific area? Was it just cheap property, or like what was your goal? I mean, there's other properties around town. There are. They're really expensive. I get that, but what brought y'all to that specific property? I'm curious. Thank you.
Yeah, what brought us to the location was the location. right? We have a desperate need for increased housing in this town. And we cannot continue to live in denial about the fact that this population is growing and is going to double within the next 15 plus years. And the ability for people to walk to work, to walk to school is critical. So there will be, please stop, there will be sidewalks in our community. There are sidewalks now on Main Street. Sidewalks can be added. I also want to feel compelled to address the concept of affordable housing and crime. Because what we're talking about, what you're talking about in Chicago, what you're talking about here is typically when people are talking about Section 8 housing and rentals. These are going to be homes that are owned by people who need housing, who can't afford to spend $350,000 or $400,000 elsewhere. I don't know. Let's see a show of hands. Who else knows of a 4-acre lot in town or near town where we can build this? Anybody?
There's a 10-acre lot on Mesquite and Pecan.
Great. All right. Anybody else? Because we need more than 2. Anybody else? Are the owners planning to build several units there?
I have no earthly idea.
All right. So we have a partial solution to a major concern. And we understand that people don't want to have stuff built in my backyard, which is why there is this acronym, NIMBY, not in my backyard. And NIMBYism is responsible for and a heavy contributor to the lack of affordable housing throughout this nation. And we are fortunate that here in Texas, why did we buy here? Because in most other states, you could not do this. Because there are rules against being able to develop without a huge input from the community that can sink projects. And in those places, hiss away, but in those places, the average cost of a home like this would be in excess of $500,000. So ask yourself the obvious questions. If not here, where? If not us, who? And if not now, when? Because the 22,000 people that we talked about, they are on their way here whether we build this or not.
I don't think you meant that you wouldn't build it without public input, right? I don't think you meant that, because that's what you said. I don't think you meant that, right? I'm trying to give you the out. You didn't mean that, right?
We are here voluntarily. We did not set this up, but we could have easily sat this out. If people have concerns about our lack of transparency up till now, that's fine, and we get it. But we are here now, and we are open to discussions now about the future. If you want to talk about the past, feel free to talk about the past, but that's not going to move anything forward. So if you want to talk about the future and have dialogue, we're all ears. And thank you, Sylvia, for giving me that clarification.
Yeah, I didn't think you meant that.
My name's Jimmy Crouch. I live at 605 Buttonwood Street. And I had 3 questions, I think, total. One is, who's paying for the street in the middle? Does the developer pay for the street in the middle? Or
That's a developer.
Okay.
It's a private street.
And then, does the city know the size, type, and condition of the existing water, sewer, and drainage piping in that block? Is it really old clay pipe, or is it random?
It's random. The plat, one of the reasons it was sent back is it doesn't have all of the necessary utility information that would allow us to make some of those decisions.
And the reason I'm asking those questions is because I don't want to see development similar to this to impact other taxpayers. So if you throw in and you're building mid-block like that, and you put in a lot of 60 units where you...
In the mic.
60 units where it normally would be 12 on average, or 20 on average, then you're adding that many sewer connections and water connections, because Everybody might not drive a car, but everybody flushes a toilet. So you have to take into consideration what you're doing to the city's infrastructure, and is the city's infrastructure up for development to be plugged into the middle of a block like that? And so maybe you've already done the research. We haven't done the research, and we should do that because something's going to go there at some point in time. The other thing was the road conditions, if we knew the road conditions. And I think the north-south streets are bigger, but maybe the east-west streets were not. So that was my question.
Definitely a road width issue. One of the concerns both staff and the fire department have expressed is, number one, the narrow street here and the narrowness of Pecan. And as cars are forced to park onto Pecan, they're parking into the culvert, they're parking into the bar ditches. And so that is a concern if we're going to have vehicles, because I went out during a school district day, and granted, peaking traffic during school district pickup and drop off is not 24/7, but I encourage anybody here to go take a look during that time period, and you'll see how the cars spill over into the ditches to allow one car or the other to move. So that's a concern staff has raised both at the fire level and street width level at this segment. And by the way, this is the warrant that staff gave at an administrative level. So I don't want anybody to believe that there was anything nefarious that the council did, because council didn't even see this. This happened at the staff level. The rules have been changed now. Council and Planning Commission will see something like this, but they didn't see this. And so this is a 26-foot. What the staff did is gave a partial approval varying a 55-foot right-of-way. This is about 26.97 or so. Any other questions? If you haven't asked a question, because I'm going to, Alex is going to beat me up.
So Diana Green, 2007 Pecan. I am blessed to have not needed to say much over these past several weeks, because I have my daughters that have voiced their opinion, and I think very well. But a couple things I want to make sure that I point out. I found out the first time I ever heard about this project at all was not a phone call, and I know you kindly told me that you did not have to tell us, but there was a school bus that pulled up on a Saturday. And everybody knows the brakes when a school bus pulls up. And I thought, what in the world? And sure enough, there's all these people getting off, and it's the planning and zoning. I think Sylvia said that they drove them around to see, and one of the people from the planning and zoning committee came over and told us what was happening. First I'd ever heard of it. 42 homes behind my house that I have lived in for 30 years. And I am from here. I grew up here. I went to school with a couple of you that have spoken. So you have my granddaughter, 9 years old, that wears hearing aids, does not hear very well, playing in the yard. And you have put this, I live right there on the corner of that exit. And you don't tell me a thing about it. Not a word is said to any of us. And then just 2 weeks ago, I say something to my neighbors across the street. I said, hey, Aunt Lou, any of you that have grown up here, you know Aunt Lou. I said, what do you think about this? These people leaving Pecan, she lives right across the street from me. The lights will go directly into their house. What do you think about that? She said, what are you talking about? And so when I said something, we said something at a meeting, my daughter spoke up and said something about it at the meeting. So then the next day when I saw you, or the day before, I can't remember, you said, I called her. Okay, so then I called Aunt Lou and said, hey, tell me about the conversation. I didn't talk to her. That's literally all you did was call or stop by, knocked on the door or whatever it was. You went by, you didn't talk to him, but you worded it as if you did. And so that's why I'm saying it, transparency. Like if you went by, I stopped by, nobody answered the door. Those are the things we need to hear, because yes, do we need growth? Absolutely. Are we worried about it being low income housing? Not necessarily. We've always lived on what's been considered the wrong side of the tracks. We are okay with that. I'm not opposed to growth, and I don't want anybody here to think that I am. What I'm opposed to is people that are coming into our community when we've been here. I'm the new kid on the block, and I've been there for 30 years. We deserve better than what you're giving us.
Oh, you haven't spoken, right? There you go.
Hey guys, good evening. I am Frances Moreno. I'm a local realtor and a Texas Affordable Housing Specialist by designation. It was one of the first designations I got as a real estate agent as I transitioned from a police dispatcher into real estate, recognizing that many of my comrades that I had worked with were not going to be able to easily afford a house unless they married rich or got a heck of a promotion. So just a few things to take into consideration is February of 2025, the National Association of Realtors marked Bastrop city limits as an average sales point of $385,000. That's as of last month. So that takes about $94,600 for a person to qualify for a home in that price. Many of you in this room were lucky enough to buy your homes in this fabulous neighborhood, this historic neighborhood, before 2021. Because what happened January of 21 through January of 22 was a 39.43% increase in price in Bastrop County. So if you were here before 21, good on you. But I want to make sure that our police officers, our firefighters, our restaurant workers, our teachers, our city employees have that same chance. In the last year alone, I have helped 3 people two of them used the home base program, and then one of them recently got under contract in Austin's Colony for the low price of $325. The home base program had a 1.5-year waiting list for one of our Bastrop teachers. She bought a condo, a 600-square-foot condo in East Austin, and drives to Bastrop with the hopes of eventually selling that, making enough profit and enough money with her master's in education to come back to Bastrop and live close and ride her bike to where she needs to go and walk to school. The police officer, if he didn't have a wife that had some income, wouldn't have made it. But he waited 6 months to get on this same type of program that these developers are looking to utilize, the home-based program, along with some other down payment assistance programs. Keep in mind that in a development like this, we're not only serving people hear affordable housing and they think immediately Section 8, undesirable neighbors, people that don't take care of their house. That's not at all what it is. This is people making $40,000 to $70,000 a year that are just trying to have the same opportunity that many of us had 15, 20 years ago. And a lot of them are also the same people that have built this community over the last 50, 60 years. And they don't want to leave their neighbors and friends and family members. But they also don't want to take care of 4,000 square feet in an 1.5 acre lot. So we're just trying to find that medium. And as it's been mentioned before, somebody's going to develop it. Somebody's going to develop it, and they don't always have to ask for public input. I do want to take a second to recognize, in my research of Bastrop over the last 103 years, the city government is doing a phenomenal job of working towards transparency, working towards making sure that people have a voice. So I would just like to give a second to say thank you for that. And I'd also like to take a second to commend the people that were sitting in the hot seat. No matter if it was forced upon them, they didn't have to. They're here. From what I've seen, they seem to be reasonable people. Let's try to find a happy medium. Let's try, if not in that 4-acre, if we did the Mesquite property, Mesquite and Pecan, they want $3.4 million for that 10 acres. And could you imagine 86-year-old Aunt Lou going down from Mesquite and Pecan to get to church? Like, I don't want to think about that. And another thing is that the potential 97 cars in this development, if they're shift workers, and just in general, they're going to be at about a third of the rate consistently. I love the stats, by the way. I'm not a numbers person. I'm a history nerd with a good memory, but that's cool. But thank you guys. I think that we can find a happy medium here. I think that affordable housing is what is needed for the next generation. Otherwise, we're going to make our kids and our grandkids wait until their 30s and 40s to buy a house.
Hello, my name is Everly. I just wanted to say that if you put all these houses behind one house, then every little kid wouldn't be able to play. And I just don't think that's going to be fun, because then they're just going to be sitting inside, and what are they going to be doing? And I just don't think it's safe if they go outside and play and there's a lot of cars. So I just wanted to say thank you.
You keep hearing about two things as we talk tonight about growth and traffic. And, you know, we're sitting probably at 12,000 population in the next 3-5 years. It's going to be we're growing every day. So the answer is not if you're for growth or against growth. What the question and answer ought to be, what is the city doing to prepare for the growth, because it's coming whether we want it or not. And that's what we need to be addressing. The second deal is the traffic that you're talking about, possibility of 106 vehicles on that in that lot behind those homes. I see the fire department fellow right next to me. What if you have an emergency or disaster in that area with an ambulance or a fire truck and they can't get in because cars are parked on the street? What are we going to do? Get somebody killed because we built a development in there with no places to put the cars?
Ishmael Harris. I'm gonna be real short. All right. So obviously everyone has a concern about affordable living, affordable housing, income-based housing. I just want to put this on everyone's mind as we continue to develop in the downtown area. There's a lot of people here and living in the downtown area, but the biggest thing is the whole east side of our town here is a hill. We're on a river bottom. It's in a bowl. So every time it rains, everything is going to wash from the east to this way. So just keep that in mind whenever we're doing any kind of development, right? If you have that development there, if you have it elevated, it's going to cause a dam. The people on Hill Street will have to do something with it. Even if you have it elevated, it's still going to run towards the west. So just keep that in mind.
Folks are still feeling the impact of the Buc-ee's development in that area.
Hello, my name is Terry Beatty. I just want to commend everybody for coming out here and sharing your voices. And you know, I think this is a really important part of being in a community. And I know Jody from 25 years ago and her work advocating for people in need. And I know what kind of a person she is and the integrity that she has. And I just, you know, there's been some talk about dishonesty and everything, but, you know, people make mistakes and maybe more should have come out earlier. I don't know. What I do know is this place needs housing and affordable housing. I have a daughter that was a teacher at the high school. She had to move out of town because she couldn't afford to live here. And you know, we shouldn't be exiling the people that we need the retirees, the police officers, the people that put out our fires, and the first responders. They need to be a part of the community and not have to live out someplace out in the boonies where they have to drive, umpteen miles to get into where they work. And now, one of the nice things about having it in the downtown area is that people can walk, and the demographics and technology are changing. People aren't going to be driving and owning cars quite the same as they have in the past. They have delivery services and Uber, and pretty soon they're going to have driverless cars that are going to be able to pick people up. And so, I just don't think we're going to be worrying about 100-something cars at this place over time. I think that it's going to be something that we're going to feel proud about, and as a community that we're able to have a place for our first responders, for people that work at nonprofits and serve the community. And they ought to be able to live in the community and not be exiled out into the boonies just because they're choosing to work a job that doesn't pay as much as others. So anyway, thank you for what you're doing, and thanks for all the input from everybody here. I think it's really nice.
Ray Leal. My parents live at 2017 North Pecan. Wow, yeah, this is difficult. Don't even look at me. So yeah, for everyone who's spoken, like you said, I commend you. It's very hard to express yourself in front of, so many people, but I probably have at least 20 to 30 family members in this room right now that would be directly impacted by this development. Their houses would be connected to development. Got your pointer? So my parents live directly where the Pecan Street entrance would be, right at that corner lot right there. My family have owned that for, I don't know, I'm 42 years old and I hate to say that, but as long as I've lived, that has been a part of my family. Even going up Pecan, Linden, even the backside. My dad planted trees there when I was 3 years old. Cottonwoods, you drive down Pecan, they'll be the biggest ones on the street. You can't miss it. I'm going to talk about the same thing everybody else did. Safety and the flooding, okay? I would probably say I have more experience in that lot than anybody else in this room. I learned how to ride a bike in that lot. My parents live there. I go there almost every day. I see the field every day. When I pull into my parents' yard, I look at the field. It's a flood zone, okay? Everybody loves Louisiana. New Orleans is great. Who would go to New Orleans and build a house right now? It's insane. You wouldn't do it. Why? It's basically in a flood zone. That's what you're going to be doing if this development happens. You talk about safety. Would you put elderly people in a position where they could not get out if there was flooding? Doesn't make sense, okay? This young lady spoke about, they're not going to use a lot of vehicles. These workers are working right now. And like you said, they're driving you from all these other places. If they move here, what do you think? They're just going to sell their car? No, they're going to bring their car. It's going to happen, okay? Change is coming. I've been in Bastrop my whole life, okay? I live in Tahitian. I moved out there, have a pool, had a nice country view, no houses. I've lived there 6 years. House, 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 house. If I go water my grass, I'm looking at my neighbors on their back porch. I can't do nothing about it. That's growth. Everybody here has talked about it. It's going to happen. We don't have a choice. You're right. But we do have a choice to save lives. And if you do this, you're putting lots of people's lives at risk with the flooding. I have pictures of me when I was 5 years old in a John boat right in front of that property that you're going to put this on, okay? I went and asked my mother the other day, where's that picture? I wanted to show it to you. She told me she couldn't find it because she lost it in the last floods that everybody's talking about, the 15s and 16. They have a little shack on their property. We had all of our storage, our stuff for childhood in there, all gone, okay? One thing no one's even talking about is that flood from early 90s or late 80s. No one's talking about it because they haven't been directly impacted by it. I was there. I saw it, okay? I used to ride four-wheelers in the back of that field. It's flooded all the time. I guarantee you no one would risk driving a truck in that field right now because they're going to get stuck. You wouldn't even make it into the entryway from Pecan Street there. Okay, so flooding, lives, you're risking them right there, okay? I've seen it firsthand. These people aren't joking, 3 or 4 foot. My parents, which are right there at that corner, if my dad has a garage, that garage has been there probably 50 years. If you go to that garage and it's ground level, any time after it rains a half an inch, there is sitting water in the back of the garage. If you go there now, you will see water lines from years and years there, okay? It's not safe. The second part is the traffic, okay? Like she said, Sylvia, you go down Pecan Street during school hour right now, there's cars on both sides. You can't go through. You're gonna have overflow parking. These communities, if they are older people, or if they are firefighters, if they are teachers, my wife works for the school district. I can tell you right now, teachers have kids. It's not like they just, oh, I'm a teacher, I'm not gonna have kids. And to be honest with you, firefighters are the same way. But firefighters, like you said, they're out doing, working and stuff. They have their family at home with their kids. You wouldn't want to leave them there by themselves. The traffic coming in and out, everyone's talked about, endangering their kids that are, directly by the development. I'm more concerned about the whole entire Pecan Street. Like everyone said, we're not on the bad side of the tracks anymore, which is what we want, whether we want it or not. But the thing is, crime's going to happen no matter what. And you can't guarantee that whoever is going to be moving into these houses are not going to be criminals or anything like that. And I know that's with everywhere you go, but the thing is, you're going to directly impact these families that live right there. My parents have a 24-foot wall that you're saying now would be their backyard. And to have the flooding issues, to have the traffic issues, to have that, you keep talking about you want to help people. How would you feel if you do develop this and it rains for 8 inches and we lose lives to that? Would you be okay with that? And, I'm all for, change. I was going to buy the property, which I wish I would have done it now. We wouldn't even be here. But I was at 6 years ago when it was up for sale. I bought my house in Tahitian. I was going to buy that lot. But the reason why I didn't was because there's nothing you can do with that lot. David up there spoke earlier. He's, going to help you out with it. He's related to me, okay? And there's nothing more that I would love for him to be able to get a contract job. Because, look, man, anything helps my family, I'm all about it. But the reality is, he'll say it or he won't say it, you can't build on that land. And if you do, you're going to have to raise it up, which is going to flood out everybody else that's in this room right here. Where are you going to be at when we need the help? And your retention pond, like I said, you can't hold water inside of a fish bowl. That's all you're going to do. No water is going to leave that fish bowl. And that's what that property is. If you drive down Pecan Street, it's raised up. Your property is at least 6-7 foot low. No matter what you say, you really can't move or direct that water without affecting somebody. The only people it's not going to affect is your development.
Anybody else who hasn't spoken yet?
All right, thank you. So I want to answer one of your questions. You asked about where are you going to be. They're the developer. They will hire an engineer. How many engineers are in here today? Licensed engineers. I'm a licensed architect. I'll talk about that in a second. City engineer. Licensed engineer. Do you stamp drawings? And when we stamp drawings, and you stamp drawings, that means that your full path of liability is on your stamp. Is that correct? That is correct. That's your path of liability, sir. If they do something and it floods your neighborhood or your house, you sue, there's a path of liability right there. I tell you, this is a math problem when it comes to drainage. It will be solved. When I do stamps, and I stamp health and life safety and fire safety and buildings, how to get people in and out for a fire. We stamp that drawing. We're the path of liability. We're the licensed professional. The developer pays us. We carry insurance. All professionals carry insurance. Just like if you sued a doctor for a mistake, doctors, some of them can, but the people, there's insurance. So your path of liability for drainage is the engineer. It's true. They will make this thing. You can go to Burleson Crossing, and they have a giant detention pond there. Detention ponds are all over the place. If you go to the East Coast, they put them under the parking lot. So drainage will be solved to the point that, as you said, Sylvia, it's not going out any more than it is right now. And you can improve upon that. So, have you been to Houston? Yes, the East. Where I've been to Houston? I can't hear you. I've built in Houston, absolutely. I've built on the coast. And so, no. I'm just telling you, there's a path of liability. I think the question is, hey, it's going to flood. That's why we have engineers. And I'm not an engineer, and there's one over there. You can ask him the question. They have a stamp. They're the ones that solve the problem. That's your path of liability. This developer knows that. They hire engineers. The city will not approve the plans unless they solve that problem. So the problems will be solved. As someone pointed out earlier, there's currently no solution there right now. There will be a solution. So I just want to eliminate that fear. The traffic is another thing. They do traffic impact analysis. If they have to widen the streets, they can widen the streets. If you have to get a fire truck in there, they can. Yeah.
Okay, so what he's talking about is errors and omissions insurance that engineers carry. That's why it's very, very critical that the city take a look at this with a super, super, super fine-tooth comb. Their own engineers already developed a preliminary drainage plan. Some of the results that we have from the FEMA has a website called Risk Map 6 that shows the area of inundation. If you come look at the map, if you come look at the plat, we've made comment about the areas of inundation. Our engineer is concerned. It has to work through their engineer. I want to make sure everybody understands they've not filed a final drainage plan. That's first and foremost. Number two, errors and omissions insurance has a cap. We're dealing with that right now with Pecan Park. There is massive erosion issues that was engineered, and as soon as the city accepts those drainage plans and accepts that project, it also becomes our liability. And guess what? The city is immune from a lot of that type of lawsuit. So you're left with very little recourse in that. Very much like doctors have insurance, there is a cap to what can be accomplished. That's why it's super, super critical that we, the city, make sure that we look at everything and that it works. And we're not at a place where it works. Mm-hmm. Right. We're going to start cutting it.
Thank you for that clarification. I just want to say that, like I love your vision and the plan. For me, the biggest thing is the traffic. And so far, the developments have impacted traffic on Wilson Street that the city, nothing to do with you guys, but that the city hasn't addressed. Traffic goes up and down Wilson so fast, no speed bumps, no stop signs. They've petitioned the city and nothing has changed on Wilson, and that's been years now that development on Carter went in. And this is going to be, that's my big concern. And I hear what you're saying back there, sir, like it's a math problem, drainage and math problem. It's probably going to get fixed. I'm not 100% confident because I've lived in flood zones that were approved before, but the traffic, like adding those cars, they're going to go fast and they're going to go a lot. And the city, I don't have any faith in the city managing that problem because they haven't so far. Now, I'd love to be proved wrong because I love my town.
I'd love to. I think it was
Yeah.
Mr. Moss's wife who asked for speed devices, and we went and put them out there, and then she angered the neighbors because of the noise. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Lean on something.
Yes, sir.
Well, my name is Tommy Claiborne, and I've been in Bastrop longer than anybody else here. And with respect to the older lady that just left, her name is Lucy Todd. They moved to Bastrop a long time ago, and she and her husband both have been very active in everything that's gone on in this city since they've been here. I really respect her, what she had to say, you know, as far as not being able to afford homes and having affordable housing. And you're righty. I mean, it's way up there, way up there. The problem is the location is not there. You've heard everybody talk about this. The other side of the tracks, we never called it the bad side of the track. It was the other side of the tracks. And you started with the Orozcos, the Sosas, the Marinos, the Pachecos, the Sains, the Barones, all of those. They were all my friends. And the Juarezes, Joe Juarez was one of my best friends growing up. And I think he probably died before you were born. But our school, they moved a special school in for us on the corner of Hill and Cedar Street, right there in the parking lot where the football field is. And that's where we went to the 3rd grade. And when it rained real hard, Joe, the Juarezes, who lived up on the north end of Hill Street, up by the baseball fields, couldn't even get home because that water came from 95 Ball Knob. I don't know what I'm talking about that. And they put in a big, 40 years later, they put in a big retention pond. That retention pond was given by a family in Bastrop because they couldn't do anything with it because of the water. And that detention pond now is about an acre. It's that big, and it still won't hold all the water. So that water is, engineers, sure, engineers can come up with everything and fix everything. How much, how long, and will it be done? Jimmy talked about it first, and going through this, Bastrop needs housing. Bastrop's projected population by 2040, 22,000. Housing is not the problem. Infrastructure is. That's what the problem is. You can't bring in housing unless you have the infrastructure to take care of the people that are coming here. It just cannot be done. You're just going to put a Band-Aid on a big problem. When we was growing up, I was all over the neighborhoods. And on Pecan Street, the ditch was probably 5 foot wide and up to 6 foot deep, carrying that water out now. So I was born here, and except for going to UT for a while and being in the Army, when I came back, I worked in Bastrop all my life. And I went to work for the Post Office Department in 1968. And that was all my territory at first. And we had engineers come in and say, well, they fixed this and that, and it would never flood here. And I'm sitting there listening to them, and I said, no, wait, I'm driving through water that deep on something that's not going to flood. Up in the North Pecan area and down on Marion Street, which is Emile now, where Gill's Branch goes under there. He said, that water will never come over that bridge. I can't even drive over it in a postal vehicle. And that's what I'm coming with the engineers. It can be engineered out, and there's no doubt about it. I appreciate all the comments. And please keep your ID going, because it's real noble, and it needs to be done. But please think about a new location. I know you said, can you think of another location here like that? There's not that many in Bastrop, you know that. But this is not the location to be putting something like this in. For safety reasons, for safety reasons is the most important part of it. And as far as anything else goes, I love Bastrop. I've been here all my life. want to keep it going there. And the city, I think the city has got a handle on it, and I want to commend them on that too, because it's not an easy thing to come to all this. But again, that's all I got to say. Me and the other older ladies.
We're going to take one final comment from Ms. Green. I'm going to read the internet. We'll give you guys a chance to close.
Hello again. First, I want to say thank you to my child, my daughter. The reason that I have shown up here time and time again is to show that our voice matters. And the fact that she was brave enough to get on the microphone and also voice her opinion, because when we've talked about this, she has repeatedly cried at the thought of not being able to go outside. And so the last thing that I just wanted to say was that, you know, Tom mentioned that we're focused on the past and he wants to move into the future. We're focused on the past because that's all we have. This is all we've ever known. And, you know, you specifically chose this lot because you said you didn't have to let us know. And that seems to be a very big issue for me. I'm not sure about the rest of you guys, but we matter. Our voice matters. And the idea that you could sit here after hours of listening to us say over and over again that we do not disagree with what you are doing. We disagree with where you are doing it, and not make a change really strikes me in who you are as a person. I want to make sure that, I have heard over and over again how great you guys are. I don't doubt it. I have a very bad taste in my mouth simply because you chose to do things the way that you chose to do them. I agree with your cause. I do think that we need affordable housing. I do think that there needs to be places for the people that we want to come into this town. And I just don't, it does not fit here. It doesn't work. You can tell us all of the drainage will be fixed and all of these things, we'll put sidewalks in, and you can feed it all to us, but at the end of the day, you have not answered a solid question tonight. You were asked if there was a way that you could guarantee that people wouldn't come in and buy these places out and rent them, and your response was yes. Not an actual answer, not what you plan to do. When it comes to drainage, you've not given an actual answer. You've said that there are plans. When it comes to parking, you say that there are plans. Give us an answer. We deserve that. We don't want to look at plans. We shouldn't have to look at plans. We should get an actual answer. And the fact that I had to show up time and time again, and I am so thankful for our city council and the city council members and our city manager who works tirelessly to make sure that these codes that were put in place that allowed you to do this are changed so this doesn't happen again. I am so thankful for that. But the fact that I had to show up time and time again and ask why we weren't told in order to get this conversation where I was able to, I knocked on doors. Just in case you were wondering, it took me an afternoon. I knocked on all of my neighbors' doors to tell them about tonight. So it doesn't take that long. It doesn't. But you didn't respect us enough to have that conversation. And that's why we're here tonight, to tell you, thank you, but no thank you. Do it somewhere else.
All right, I'm going to read the online comments. I'm just going to be brief about it, and then I'm going to give Tom and Jody an opportunity to close. So Sid Burbank, who lives on Pecan, is no to the development. Sherry Gilmore, who lives on Pecan, is no to the development. Herb Goldsmith, who lives on Pecan, is yes to the development. J.B. Kuhn, who lives in the area, is against the development. Jen Lucas, who lives on Garfield, is for the development. Rebecca Bennett, who lives on Pecan Street, is against the development. Shana Quintanilla Boyd, who lives on Thompson Trail, is against the development. John Crawford, who lives on Jefferson Street, is against the development. Christopher Hark, who lives on Roaring Fork Lane, is against the development. And I believe I already said Jared Huruska, who lives on Buttonwood Street, is against the development. Melinda Larson, Farm Street, is against the development. So that's what we have for online submittals. Anybody else before I give the developer back the mic? Oh.
Thank you, sir. Hi, everyone. My name's Jen Lucas. Sorry, I'm standing in front of you. Sorry, I'm late. I'm just getting here from work, so I haven't been privy to any of the statements or the presentation that have happened. But I just wanted to get up and say that I've known Jody Smith for 15 years, and I've known Tom for 10. And I just know that, especially like for Jody, she has spent her entire career fighting for the rights of children. She went to law school because she wanted to be able to protect the rights of children and families more. And then she married Tom, and all I've ever known is their service mind. So no matter what happens, or I don't know what the rules are, I'm not a builder, I'm not an engineer. I've worked in nonprofit most of my life, and for most of my career, I could have qualified for affordable housing. So I just really want to speak to their character and hope that whatever happens, that we remain neighborly and that we remain open to listening and remain open to dialogue, even if folks seem on the opposite side of things, because it is going to get super crowded here. And for anybody who's lived in a place that gets crowded, it's tough. And so if we can work together as a community to provide housing for folks who have grown up here or who are aging here so that they can stay and they don't have to leave, I hope that we will do that as a community. So I just, I want to thank everybody for coming and for caring, and just to speak for them that I know that they care as well. They're definitely not trying to make money. They're not trying to piss off a neighborhood. That their intentions are in a very good place. So that's all. Thank you.
Ms. Moreno, who was telling us how much mortgage rates are, is she around? Oh, we have right now 1,500 single-family units going up, 250 townhomes going up, all within the 250-300 range in the Valverde subdivision. So there's that. In the Addleton subdivision, they're a little bit more expensive. Those are outside the city. We have about 1,200 apartments online fixing to come through. So the housing is coming. They're right in that regard. It's, whether this area is developed as it is or not, again, we are not at a point of any final decision making. The comments on the plat are at the back table, so feel free to take a look.
So I just want to say thank you for everybody who took the time to let us hear from you. There are a lot of different perspectives here and a lot of talk about balancing different priorities and balancing different things that are good when we try to accomplish those all in the same town. And so we hear this tonight. And we will continue to work with the city. And it is all in the planning stage right now. Ms. Green, you asked for something more than plans, but until all the plans are approved, there won't be anything more than that. So at this point, we have the plans that we work with our engineers to develop and our architects to develop so that those can get the full review by the city and go through that process. So that's what we are that's where we are in it. And we will continue to do that in good faith. And thank you to everybody else who, showed up tonight to be part of this discussion.
All right, thank you all. Just for your information, as we move forward, the council did change the rules the other day. It goes for a second reading. When we have plats of this nature, you will have notice. You will have notice. It will be within 500 feet. When we have anything that remotely resembles a neighborhood regulating plan or things that don't have to go through the quote unquote normal rules, you will have notice within the surrounding area. everybody deserves to know what's going on, and I think Councilmember Foster said it best when she said, put the people's business in front of the people. This is the people's business, so thank you.